What up?
Big steps. He's giving me the inside info that I got last week. Didn't need so much inside info, even though we had it from Adam Schefter, who's going to join us after 8 a.m. Eastern today to learn what the Browns were going to do at starting quarterback this year. Schefter told us weeks ago it was going to be Joe Flacco, and Kevin Stefanski, their head coach, announced that yesterday that Joe Flacco is going to be QB1. Cool, we were aware of that. Question becomes, who's QB2 going to be? It's very odd that a bad team a year ago that has 6 quarterbacks under contract that no one anticipates being great this year, and that they are the odds-on favorites at plus 400 ESPN bet to be the last winless team in the NFL. That their backup quarterback situation is as interesting as any other QB situation in the league right now.
But is it interesting because you feel confident about both of those guys turning into something, and Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, or is it because of Shedeur, period?
Well, I mean, as Billy Joel said, I'm the entertainer in this, or was that Dillon Gabriel? I'm not sure. So here's the thing. I am interested because I'm obsessed with roster composition and construction. And I'm obsessed with the thought of what if the Browns, could be Gabriel, could be Shedeur, actually hit on one of these guys. And then what happens when they have 2 first-round picks next year, theirs and the Jaguars. So I'm interested to see, did they find their franchise quarterback in the mid-rounds of this year's draft? And what does that do to alter the shape of the AFC North and the AFC? Because if you find a franchise quarterback in the middle of the draft, like we saw with Seattle and Russell Wilson, Tom Brady is an anomaly. So leave him to the side, right? But let's just use Seattle with Russell Wilson, just as an argument. Or even if you want to say the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts, that was, what, the 3rd round, 2nd round, whatever it was with Jalen Hurts. It changes everything about your team. You could spend money to protect that guy and try to destroy the other team's quarterback. So that's why I'm fascinated by this. Joe Flacco's not the long-term answer. We know that. He knows that. But if Shedeur or Dillon Gabriel are, you have to look at the Cleveland Browns differently. That's why I'm interested in the depth chart. Who do they have and who do they believe in?
Yeah, but I don't understand why Kenny Pickett is still on this team. What point does that make? Who does that serve for Kenny Pickett to still be on the quarterback depth chart? Mike Tannenbaum was on the show yesterday, and he suggested that they trade Kenny Pickett to the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know if it's Dallas. I don't know where he's going to go, but he got to get the hell out of there. Because there's no point in him being there. The veteran presence, the steady hand in the quarterback room is Joe Flacco. Mm-hmm. And if something happens to Joe Flacco, or if he doesn't play well, then you should be turning it over to running the rookie quarterbacks. It should be Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel. Nothing else makes sense. What are you trying to salvage this season for? See, your team is not competing for a Super Bowl this year.
No.
I would have had an argument against you up until a couple of weeks ago. The argument would have been, well, I personally have no issue with them putting Shedeur, if he's banged up on the IR, to force him to learn for the first 4 weeks, which he'll do anyway. And you need a backup in there. Well, they signed Snoop Huntley, who's more than capable as a backup quarterback. So you're right. There is no purpose for that. Let's just be clear on this. Your thought is this. No disrespect to Snoop Huntley, no disrespect to Kenny Pickett. Your thought is Flacco and the 2 rookies, and that's it, and call it a day.
Yes.
There's an argument.
But here's the thing. I don't even understand the Snoop Huntley of it all. Like, my whole point is this. You're starting the season with Joe Flacco as your quarterback.
Right.
If something happens to him, then everybody, fans, media, people internally in the organization understands that you're turning to a rookie quarterback, and that the bar has been lowered from what it should have been with Flacco as your QB1. That's all you're trying to accomplish if you're Kevin Stefanski. Managing the expectations for your young guys as to not shake their confidence early on so they can go out there and show you what they are and what they aren't, so you can make an informed decision before 2026. That is the point of this season. I'm not going to call it a free roll because there are a lot of men in that building that are working their tails off to do everything they can to put the team in position to win games. But if you're the Cleveland Browns, you got to take a macro view of this thing. Keeping Kenny Pickett on the roster seems incredibly short-sighted. So if you're Cleveland, I know you don't want to publicly say this as to lose leverage in any negotiation, but you should be looking to move on from Kenny Pickett. And there are a lot of teams that could use a quality backup.
Mm-hmm. especially because he's been banged up and hasn't fully participated in practice since, I think, July 26th. And I am so with you. The only goal for this season should be to figure out what you have in that quarterback room with those two young players specifically, in Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. If you exit this season and you don't have a firm answer on that heading into the draft, it's a complete failure, because you have capital entering a quarterback-rich draft. You could either get the quarterback of the future, or you could leverage that, get back picks, which you started doing with the Travis Hunter trade, and you desperately need to continue to do to recoup some of that stuff from the Deshaun Watson deal. If you leave this season as the Cleveland Browns and you don't know about those two guys, it's a complete waste of a year.
You know what, Smalls? We've been looking at this quarterback competition in Cleveland all wrong. We've looked at it as a 4 and now 5-way competition with Snoop Huntley involved. It's not that. There was 2 separate competitions happening at the same time. There was the competition to see who be QB1 between Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. And then there was the competition to see who would be the young guy that gets the first chance to play regular season games between Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel. Those were the 2 quarterback competitions going on. We thought it was 1. It was 2. Clearly, what they told us yesterday, Joe Flacco won the first one, between the veterans. And now it's going to come down to that 3rd preseason game to see who wins between the rookie quarterbacks to determine who's going to get the first crack at regular season games when the organization is ready to pivot off of Joe Flacco. Based on everything we've seen and heard, for my money, that's Shedeur Sanders. But that's why they have to go out there and play the games. This 3rd preseason game is going to be pivotal in determining not only who the rookie quarterback is that gets the first crack at playing in meaningful games, but the timeline in which said quarterback is inserted into the starting lineup.
Coming up, there are going to be some coaches in college put on the hot seat by one Chris Canty. So,
a couple of late touchdowns. Bengals up 28-14 at the half. Adam Schefter alongside preseason. The late games help bring the regular season into focus. With that in mind, a couple of quarterback developments on this Monday. What can you share beginning in L.A.?
Scott, the good news for the Rams was Matthew Stafford was back at practice today. 26 throws. It was his first practice of the summer. And doctors are optimistic that he will be ready for the Rams' regular season opener against the Houston Texans, who have a powerful pass rush. There is concern within the Rams organization. They're taking this day by day. But in the end, they do believe that the ultra-tough Stafford will be there. Meanwhile, the Cleveland Browns made a starting quarterback decision to the surprise of nobody. Joe Flacco wins the starting quarterback job. And that's really not the question. The question is, who is going to back up Joe Flacco on opening day when they play the Cincinnati Bengals? Will it be Dillon Gabriel? Will it be Shedeur Sanders? Will it be Kenny Pickett? But Joe Flacco won that job without ever taking a snap in a preseason game. And then there are 2 quarterback battles left in the NFL. The Indianapolis